Okay, and now for something completely different. This is going to be very, very interesting. Just off tour, Steve Vais is a musician, guitar player, and 3-time Grammy winner. As some of you may well know, he's spectacularly talented. He's worked with a large number of amazing musicians. With a talk called Creative Manifestation, please help me welcome a legendary artist, Steve Vais.
Thank you. Thank you. You might be wondering, what is a rock musician doing here at a science festival? And I guess we're going to find out. I may have to explain to you the Einstein's unified field theory or something like that. I don't know. But there are a lot of similarities in the arts, music, and science. And one of those is the creative process that goes on inside of us. As a musician, you start with an open field, infinite field of potentiality, and you look into it for an idea or a desire, and it arises in you and feels good, and then there's the desire to bring it into the world through the creative process. So you align with it. It's a good thing I'm not a scientist because I don't have to prove anything that I want to create, except by bringing it into the world. And that's really the creative process, I think, for most people. And everybody, basically, virtually everything you do involves creativity of some sorts. And in science, it's similar in that you have an idea, and then you bring it into the world by proving it. And in any field whatsoever, there's basically a period that you go through where you have to sort of prepare your vessel, whether if you're a musician, that might require a tremendous amount of hours of playing to develop your technique. I used to spend 10, 15 hours a day practicing, developing my technique, studying music, understanding the language. And it's similar in any field. In science, you need to sort of understand the rules, the regulations. And in sports, you need to spend many, many hours, 10,000-hour theory of basically honing your skill, until you get to a point where you pretty much have a handle on what it is that your mode of operation is. But there comes a point in any creative process where you have to go deeper than the technique. You have to find the access to your unique creative insight, and it's there. Everybody has a unique creative ability because everybody's unique. I mean, I can look at you and recognize you in a face of 7 billion people. Why? Because you're unique. So it would stand to reason that your ability to be creative and bring something creative into the world is unique. And if you don't find that access, you'll be meandering in information you'll create, but it'll just be repetitive. And it'll take different forms, but there'll never be anything fresh and new that flows into what you do. So the technique, the academics of anything that you study is important. It has its place. But of more vital importance is going beyond and getting in touch with your uniquely creative instincts. And they arise in you as an inspiration, as an insight, as a creative insight. And in any field, anything that you do, there's so many things that are important. How do we What is our creative manifestation? What is it that we're creating? How is it going to make me famous? How am I going to spread the word? Is it going to be what I need to do for the rest of my life? All these questions that the mind asks are part of the things that are important. How is it going to put food on the table? How is it going to change the world? How am I going to contribute to world peace? How am I going to be remembered? All these things are questions, and they are, at one level, they have their importance, but actually they are not of vital importance. Of more importance than the things that are seemingly important is the quality of your inspiration. The quality of your inspiration. Why is that even more important than your own family? Because the way that you deal and the way that you are with your family, or any of the other things that are important to you, stem from the quality of your inspiration. So what does that mean, the quality of your inspiration? What it means is the quality of the thoughts that are in your own head. And there's two kinds of thoughts that we have in our head. One of them is a creative insight that arises in us. It's not even a thought. It arises as an aha moment. And you know your creative thoughts because when they arise in you, there's a feeling of enthusiasm for them. We all know the feeling of enthusiasm. It could be subtle, it could be intense, but it's always of a positive value inside of you. The other kinds of thoughts we have are usually repetitive. 85% of the thoughts in our head are usually repetitive and unfortunately negative, and they stem back from our whole life. As a matter of fact, the thoughts in our head are based on our egoic perspective. So I want to define the way I use the word ego here a little bit. The ego, I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, so I don't really understand the meaning of it in that realm. But the way that I'm referring to ego is that part of you, that part of us, that separates us. It gives us the feeling of being separate. It's the belief systems that we have. It's the reactionary part of our mind. It's the criticizing, not the critiquing. Critiquing is different than criticizing. It's the criticizing part of our mind, and most of the thoughts within it are repetitive, and they're based on our past, and usually it has to do with things like what happened to us, what somebody did to us, what they should have done that they didn't do, what we did, something we should have done. Sometimes these are wonderful thoughts, but still they create in us a perspective and an identity for ourselves. The egoic mind creates an identity for yourself, a concept of who you are, your name, your thoughts about yourself, what you can do, what you can't do. And these thoughts are extraordinarily limited, and they limit us. And we can be creative through these thoughts, but what we bring into the world through our egoic perspective carries in it the energy of that perspective. And you can see this in the world, and I don't have to mention some of the things that we've created through the egoic perspective. But also there's that other side to us that is completely inspired. It has no thought in it. It's your true creative nature. It's the creative impulse of the universe that wants to flow through you. And it's the only place that creative, unique thoughts can flow through you into the world that are fresh, new, and positive. Okay, so how do we get access to that, our genius, so to speak? this requires, well, the perspectives that we have, as I mentioned, are based on the thoughts in our head. And when we look into the world that we see is based on our perspectives. And the interesting thing about our perspective on things is there's no two perspectives in the world that are similar in anybody. If there's one Steve Vais sitting on this stage and there's 1,500 of you, there's 1,500 Steve Vais sitting on this stage. Because that's a lot of notes, too, by the way. But that's because you all have a different perspective of what I am, or what these glasses are, or anything. They create your belief systems. They're egoic in the sense that you believe them to be true. Anything that your perspective looks at and then believes to be true will become your reality. And the ego is very difficult to change its perspective on anything, in that it doesn't like to be proven wrong, hence all the problems in the world. War is basically egos that don't agree with each other. And the interesting thing about the ego is if it's proven wrong, it's kind of like a death. And it will fight to the end to not be proven wrong. And this is very obvious in the world, too. Okay, so how do we recognize these thoughts in us and have access to our uniquely creative, brilliant thoughts? The answer is in finding moments of presence and stillness. And what that means is basically stopping the thinking mind. The little voice that's always talking, the little voice that's always criticizing, critiquing, evaluating, and feeling like it knows the answer, and is usually very critical and usually creates suffering, and suffering for oneself and for others. And not all the time, obviously, but to actually create an opening is finding that dimension within you of stillness, of presence, where you look with attention, you use your ability of attention without thought. This is thoughtless attention, the state of Zen, maybe. But how do you find access to that? Well, the first step is in recognizing the thoughts in your head. Because most people believe that the thoughts in their head are who they are. But they're always changing. And to have access to the deeper part of who you really are requires thoughtless awareness. And this is something that even Einstein spoke about when he needed to find the best high-quality answer for a solution or an equation. He took moments of stillness. Stillness in the body and in the mind. Stillness is thoughtless awareness, and you can do it right now. As a matter of fact, you can only do it right now. You can only ever do it now, because now is the only time there ever is. The past and the future only actually exist in the mind of man. In reality, there's only the now. It's the only time there is. If your attention is in the now, without thought, you are actually connecting yourself to the creative impulse of the universe. Because the only thing stopping your instincts, your creative instincts, from flowing and arising in you as inspired thoughts is your egoic perspective of the world. So, very interesting things can happen when you try to access this dimension of thoughtless awareness. The first thing that can happen, if you've tried it, as a matter of fact, here's the thinking mind, here's all the thoughts, and they're going on, and they're criticizing and critiquing, and then all of a sudden, you're giving your full attention without thinking. Now, the first thing that can happen for some people is they say, what the hell is he talking about? I have no idea what he's saying. Thoughtless awareness. If I don't think, I don't exist. I think, therefore I am. Actually, he had it backwards. It's I am, therefore I can think. Because the I am comes before the thinking. Some other things that can happen if you try to enter that dimension of stillness is you notice thoughts coming right away, like, well, there's nothing here. There's nothing to think of. There's not, because that's the mind. The mind loves to, if the mind stops thinking, it thinks it's gone. But actually, that's the ego. And some people may try to enter this dimension, and deep fear can arise. That is the ego, because it believes that shutting off the thinking mind will be its death. And actually, ironically, it is. Now, of course, you always have access to your thinking mind, your thoughts, and your past and your future. But the evolution of consciousness in man, this is the next step. The step of thoughtless awareness. And through it comes action, inspired, high-quality action, thoughts, words, awareness. And it's a practice, because we've practiced thinking thoughts about ourselves and the world for so many years, thousands of years. The collective mind of man is very heavily conditioned, and our thoughts are completely conditioned by our society, the way we grew up, the things we believe, our religion, our political points of view, how we see the world, how we criticize others. This is conditioned thought patterns that have created such a momentum in us and neural pathways in the brain that we think this is reality, this is truth. But in the state of presence, there is no thoughts, and that's when you actually have access to a closer idea of what reality is, because truth and reality has no belief in it. A belief means there can be a disbelief. So truth in itself has no belief. It has no opinion. It just is, and you have access to it through your intense attention without thought. And it deepens. And even if you can only do this for seconds at a time, it's vital. It's vital in your life. This is the only place that you will find the one thing that every human being on the planet really wants: peace. Isn't that what you really, really want? Peace. This is the only place you will find it, because the only thing that's causing stress in your life is the quality of thoughts in your head. And this dimension of stillness deepens, and very amazing things start to happen. You start to see things you never saw before. You start to see colors that you've never seen, taste things that you've never seen. And all you have to do is put your attention in whatever it is you're doing. And then any desire that you have, any creative desire that you have, you can almost create a recipe to the universe and say, I would like this. I don't know how it's going to happen. It's none of your business how. You just need to know what it is you want. And then you enter that space of stillness, and then you look at the situation, and you wait for it to arise in you. If it doesn't happen right away, you go back to that stillness. And the stillness in and of itself will take care of itself and get longer and deeper. This is your greatest responsibility in life, because this is what's going to transform the world, and it's happening right now. It's happening in you. You may not know that if you're reading the press and watching TV, but many people, this transformation is happening, and the more access you have to it, the more you will see it happening in the world, because as your perspective changes, your world changes. How many people does it take to reach this state before there's massive change in the world? One, you. It may look like I'm speaking to a lot of people, but in actuality, I'm only speaking to one person, you. Because you are connected in consciousness to everybody. And as you bring this into the world, you will see it arise, and there, one might say, in and of itself, is Einstein's unified field theory. When the collective consciousness of man reaches the stage of present awareness, you cannot even imagine what you can't imagine, what will flow through you creatively into the world. I'm done. Thank you.